Women are inherently inferior to men. Really? And that's what men of some cultures think, and even some Christian men think the same thing. Let's talk about that today. Hi, I'm Pastor Doug. Welcome to the Bible Detective. If you enjoy anything out of this, learn anything out of this, please like the video, make a comment, pro, con, neutral, share this video with others, and help make our channel grow. And please subscribe if you haven't already done so. According to Genesis 3:16, the husband is to rule over the wife. Now, we're going to talk about what that means in a few weeks, but today we want to ask the question, are all women inherently inferior to all men? Now, there are a number of places in the Bible we could go to get an answer to that question, but let's focus today on Genesis chapter 2. As you can see here on the screen, we're looking at verses 18 through 20, and actually 21 through 22 as well. And as always, I'm reading from the New American Standard Bible. Then the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him." And out of the ground the Lord God formed every animal of the field and every bird of the sky, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called a living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all the livestock, and to the birds of the sky, and to every animal of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper suitable for him. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. Then he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh at that place. And the Lord God fashioned into a woman the rib which he had taken from the man, and brought her to the man. Now, this is really interesting if you really kind of pay attention to what's going on here. God says it's not good that man be alone, and I'm going to make a helper for him. And then what does he do? Then there's a description of, he pauses to create all these animals, brings the animals to Adam, and has Adam name them all. What's going on here? That doesn't fit what he had said in the previous verse. And then, of course, eventually he does, of course, create Eve. Now, look at this diagram here, because it shows a little bit of the structure of verse 18, also of basically verse 20 as well. God said that Adam is alone and needs a helper. Okay, that's what he says in verse 18. And then God brought all the animals to Adam for him to name. That's in verses 19 and the first half, basically, of verse 20. And then, but for Adam there was not found a helper, in the last portion of verse 20. Notice the A-B-A pattern there. A and A1, basically the same point. Not good that Adam is alone, he needs a helper. Or that Adam was not found a helper for him. And yet in the middle of this, God interrupts the flow of his thought by having Adam name all of the animals. And then Adam notices that he does not have a mate. So you see, God did this to show him that he didn't have a mate, like the animals did. In fact, the entire creation account in chapter 2 is highlighting Eve's creation, on all creation here, that it proceeds from the incomplete to the complete. Not from the superior to the inferior, but again, from the incomplete to the complete. God's highlighting Eve's creation then doesn't really sound like she was subordinate to Adam at the beginning. Now, some English translations, notably the King James Version, there are a few others, make it sound like Eve was a type of a servant. She was just a helper, like an assistant. Now, Christians who believe this are almost always quick to add, "Oh, she's an honorable servant." But she's nevertheless a servant. But let's take a look at two key words here that occur both in verse 18 and verse 20 of Genesis chapter 2. These words, especially when you look at their meanings and the roots of their words, in the Hebrew, actually will help clarify the whole situation. The words from the New American Standard English translation are helper and suitable. Helper and suitable. Okay. Now, the root word for helper in the Hebrew means to surround, protect, or aid. So that would suggest that Eve was created perhaps to come to Adam's aid in some way. Now, not necessarily to protect, but that's the root meaning of the word. That's at least suggestive of something other than a subordinate individual to Adam. And then, by the way, this word, Moses could have chosen another word. In fact, there was more than one other Hebrew word he could have chosen to indicate a servant, or you might say in the medieval terms, a vassal-servant relationship. But he didn't use those words. He used this one instead. In fact, this word occurs more than 80 times in the Old Testament. The large majority of times, it's a reference to God as one who brings physical, military, and spiritual aid to his people. And no one argues that God is a subordinate helper. In fact, the word emphasizes that the receiver needs this aid and is in some ways dependent upon it. So there's nothing here so far that would indicate a servant, honorable or otherwise, for Eve. Then there's the Hebrew word for suitable, or the word is meet, M-E-E-T, in the King James Version. This comes from a root which conveys the notion of prominence or conspicuousness. So in Genesis 2, it essentially means that the woman here, whom we know as Eve, is one who is predominantly or conspicuously corresponds to Adam. In other words, Eve was Adam's equal partner, suitable for him, or comparable to him, as other translations word that. Now, at the same time, we're not ignoring other evidence here. After Adam and Eve sinned, in Genesis chapter 3, something did happen to disrupt the full, complete equality of the husband-wife relationship. I mean, that's clear. And again, I made a reference to Genesis 3:16. Now you can read it here on the screen with me. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you shall deliver children. Yet your desire will be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Now, that needs to be unpacked. And in the near future, we will examine that text and its implications, because there's real meaning there, and yet the meaning is limited to a certain context. And, what does that mean? How does the husband rule over the wife, and so forth? Those are important questions which we will deal with in just a couple more videos from now. So stay tuned. Please leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already done so to the channel, so that you'll know when that video comes up, because it's coming up in the near future. In the meantime, please remember that with a little bit of effort and the application of some common sense principles, you too can become a Bible detective.